Hello and welcome. So we started the foundation courses again today. So for first year and second year, we are following the foundation course, the list of foundation courses that APSSDC is taking care of. Now this particular segment is meant for final year students for 5th semester. Now these are the students, in case if you're watching, if you're in final year, you are going to look for a job very soon. You will have your campus drives getting started very soon. And these CRTs or campus recruitment training is meant for you. Now what are we going to cover in terms of campus recruitment training? First and foremost, there will be a very extensive and intensive training on communication skills. Then we'll also speak a lot on soft skill and behavioral skills, which is mainly the employability skills we are looking at. Now, what do we mean by employability skills? A person who should be well versed with certain MS Office tools, that will be anyways covered. From your job perspective, we're going to look at certain aspects, for example, how to be successful in interviews, how to be successful in group discussions, your body language, presentation skills, leadership skills, feedback mechanism, all these important aspects. Now to begin with, we still need to emphasize a lot on communication skills, and that is what we will begin with today. All right. So what do we mean by communication? Communication basically means exchange of information. If you are a final year student and if you have been facing issues in terms of communication, this training is meant for you. So the caption says the art of communication is the language of leadership. A person who is a very good communicator is an effective leader. So what can you expect from this particular training? So let me quickly tell you what we're going to cover. We're going to talk about overview of communication and communication tree. We're going to look at unlearning and unravel common myths. Now there are certain aspects of learning that you did as a part of your school and your academic curriculum. Certain aspects of these learnings were not right and not accurate. We will look at these aspects. Understanding the fundamental pillars of communication, and these are the pillars: pronunciation, grammar, vocabulary and fluency. We will look at the second most important aspect of communication, which is listening, and we'll also look at effective email writing skills. There are a lot of companies that hire people based on their writing ability, so we'll also train you on email writing skills. The second segment of communication skills, we will look at making the right impression, which is the body language, leveraging interpersonal skills for success, and effective presentation. All these training that you see from here on, when we talk about communication skill, these trainings will be a lot of practical orientation, which means whatever I'm speaking, you need to engage yourself, you need to involve yourself in terms of learning and also in terms of delivery. After 3-4 days of session, I will see if we can also arrange for 15 minutes of interactive session where there will be a phone line that will open up for you. We will make that arrangement later on, so that you can call and ask your questions. Because in case I'm the only person who's talking continuously and I don't allow you to ask questions, it's not going to be effective. You can still ask your questions by posting your question on the YouTube video, which gets uploaded soon after the session. If you're watching it on YouTube right now, you can post your questions. If you're watching it on your television, you can go back to YouTube and post your question. I will take a look and I will provide you with the answer. Please understand one thing: these trainings on communication skills or behavioral skills has to be interactive, and you need to engage yourself in a lot of assignments and a lot of practice. If you do not practice, if you do not ask questions, if you do not engage and indulge yourself, this learning is not going to be effective. All right, so let's go forward. So what do we mean by communication? Communication basically means a transmission or exchange of data. All right. So any mode or any circumstances where or any instance wherever there is a exchange of information, that means there is some sort of communication happening. All right. So it could be one person to another, or it could be one device to another. For example, if you look at the slide right now, I am using a keyboard, and when I say back key or the up arrow key, it automatically goes to the previous slide. When I say next, it comes to this slide. If I say right arrow key, it goes to this particular slide. If you take a look at this particular device which is in my hand right now, this is a simple keyboard, right? It's a normal keyboard, 200 rupees, 150 rupees, or it can go up to 3,000, 4,000. The cost of this device doesn't matter. The function of this device matters. Whenever I'm clicking the arrow keys, the slide is changing. Why is it happening? It's happening because there is some data that is getting transmitted from this particular keyboard through the cables to the laptop, and from the laptop it's going as a live feed on the computer, and you are able to watch it. Some of you could be 700, 800 kilometers away from me right now. I'm in Hyderabad in this particular studio. But whatever I'm saying, you are able to hear. That's because there is some communication happening, there is some data transmission happening. So whenever there is an exchange of information from one point to another, there is a communication. All right. Now, what is a communication cycle? We were taught in our school and in our college, certain first year academic curriculum also talks about communication cycle, that there is a sender and there is a message which is received by a receiver. So there is a sender, there is a receiver, and the sender sends a message and the receiver receives, right? The receiver sends back a feedback. For example, if the message is how are you, the receiver says I am fine. If the sender asks a question or say asks for something, can you give me your pen? The feedback, yes I can, or no I cannot, which means there is always a response and feedback between these two. This is what we were taught in our school, and this is what a communication cycle is all about. But it's not necessary that there will always be a cycle involved. Okay, so what we learned in our school is not completely accurate. So this is what we were taught, but it's not always right. If you look at these three pictures in the bottom, you have a hoarding or a billboard which talks about a sale, you have a newspaper, or you have a news channel, breaking news or whatever news. Whenever you're receiving these information, you are not talking back to the billboard or to the hoarding, you don't talk to the newspaper, neither you talk to the television, right? For example, there was an election result yesterday. Are you talking back to the television, to the news reader? No. There is a huge flood that's going on in Mumbai right now. So you can see the news on your phone, on Facebook or Twitter or some news sites, but are you talking back? No. But are you receiving the information? Did you receive the information? Yes. So it's not always necessary that there has to be a feedback which is going back to the sender. All right. Now, what are the essentials of effective communication? There are primarily 6 important essentials of effective communication. And what are they? Number 1, assertiveness. Number 2, authenticity. Number 3, open-mindedness. Number 4, empathy. Number 5, clarity. Number 6, listening skills. So what do we mean by each one of this? Let's take a quick example and I will explain what do we mean by all this. I would suggest you make a note of all these 6 essentials. The first one is assertiveness. Number 2 is authenticity. Number 3 is open-mindedness. Number 4 is empathy. Number 5 is clarity. Number 6 is listening skill. All right. Now let's look at what is assertiveness. Now when I talk about assertiveness, I need to talk about a couple of more aspects. let me open a slide for myself. This is for me to explain to you. Okay, so what I have done here is I have written three different behaviors. Let me remove this. This will be easier for you to see. All right, submissive, aggressive, assertive. What do we mean by submissive? Submissive is a behavior whenever someone asks you to do something, you immediately agree to do that. Submissive means whatever others are telling you or asking you to do, you oblige to it immediately, which means you allow people to dominate you. That's a submissive nature. Aggressive is the opposite of submissive. Aggressive means you always dominate others and you don't allow anybody to do what they want or what they want to do, or you don't even allow them to have their own thought process. You don't allow them to have their own mindset. They have to agree to whatever you say or whatever you do. That's aggressive because you are dominating. Now, aggressive can be a negative character or negative characteristic as well as a positive nature or trait. For example, if you look at certain sportsmen, say for example, if you look at Virat Kohli, for example, he is an aggressive captain. But if you look at Mahendra Singh Dhoni, he is not aggressive, he is always very cool-minded. If you look at Sachin Tendulkar in certain circumstances, he is a very aggressive batsman. Or say, I would rather use the example of Virendra Sehwag. He is a very aggressive batsman. He scores century, double century. But Rahul Dravid also scores centuries. But Rahul Dravid's behavior is not aggressive. He is very watchful and very cautious. So you have two different individuals. One guy has the aggression, the other guy does not. In this case, the aggression of Virendra Sehwag is a positive aggression. But if you look at certain mobs, like whatever happened in Haryana a couple of days ago, people are so aggressive that they are creating a lot of violence and riot. That's a negative aspect of aggression. So when you talk about being aggressive, that means you dominate others. It could be for positive or for negative reasons. Submissive means you allow people to dominate yourself. Then what do we mean by assertive? Assertive basically means having the confidence of saying no to a person or disagreeing with the person without offending that person. Say for example, I have 20 rupees in my pocket. Somebody comes and asks, can you give me 20 rupees? I either give it to that person, submissive. I refuse to give that person no matter what kind of emergency that person is in, that's aggressive. Or assertive. I can say that I'm sorry, I cannot give you this money because I've saved it for my lunch. So I'm not offending that person, making that person feel bad, but I'm saying no to that person. That is what assertive is all about. Then we have authenticity. What do we mean by authenticity? Authenticity basically means whatever I say or do, people believe in me, people trust me. Say for example, if I say that I'm wearing a watch which is worth 5 crores, nobody is going to believe this because whatever I'm saying is not authentic. You may have come across people who make all tall promises but they don't keep these promises, and you don't trust these people. That's because they are not authentic. So authenticity is point number 2, which is an essential component of effective communication. Open-mindedness. What do we mean by open-mindedness? Say for example, I go for an interview and the interviewer asks me a question that, or not interview, let me make it a group discussion, because that's a perfect platform where different people have different opinions, right? The topic is, should India abolish child labor? Now, I'm a person who strictly feels yes, they should abolish child labor, but there could be another person who says no, it's not mandatory or compulsory to abolish child labor. Now, you have a person who has an opposite point of view, but are you open-minded to accept his point of view? When you want to have an effective communication, when you want to be an effective communicator, you need to accept others' point of view, which could be in contrast with what you are thinking. It could be quite opposite to what you are thinking, but you need to be in a position to accept their viewpoint. That is what open-mindedness is all about. Number 4 in this list is empathy. What do we mean by empathy? Now, if I have to talk about empathy, I need to give you another word, sympathy. Okay? There is a difference between sympathy and empathy. Let me quickly give you another set of example to tell you what do I mean by this. So I'm underlining one particular word in these two statements. Okay. So first question that I asked you is, what is the difference between sympathy and empathy? And I wrote another line here, which is I am sorry versus I apologize. What is the difference? Please think and try to figure out or try to probe yourself as to what is the difference between sympathy and empathy. If you can get this answer, I am sorry versus apologize, that means you will understand what is sympathy and empathy. Okay. Now, a lot of people mistake sorry versus apology. They think sorry means for a mistake which is done knowingly, apology unknowingly, or sorry unknowingly and apology knowingly. I'll quickly tell you what do we mean by this. I'm using this PowerPoint so that you can make a note of it, you can take a screenshot. This will be much more effective. Alright, sorry means you use the word sorry when you are not directly or indirectly responsible, and apologize or apology, let me change it to apology. Okay. Sorry when you are not directly or indirectly responsible. Apology when you are directly or indirectly responsible. Let me give you a quick example. All right. I hope this is visible to you guys. Say the situation is you're talking to your friend and your friend says the laptop stopped working and he has to buy a new laptop. Or say for example your friend says he or she lost her new phone. So what do you say in that case? You basically say, I'm sorry to hear about it. For example, you speak to a person and you ask, how are you doing? And that person says, I'm not in a good mood. I lost my phone in the morning while traveling by bus. So you say, okay, I'm sorry to hear that. You usually use that when somebody dies in somebody's family. When they say, my grandfather passed away, you say, I'm sorry to hear, my condolences. Sorry is an expression of sympathy. Sorry is an expression of emotion. There is no action involved. It's a courtesy call. It's usually said to express grief, to express sadness. Then when do we use apology? Apology, it says, when you are directly responsible for it. Say for example, you borrowed some notes or books from your friend and you could not return it on time, and because of which your friend could not finish his or her assignment. So what do you say in that case? You say, I apologize for the delay in returning your notes, because you are directly responsible for it. So sorry when you are not directly or indirectly responsible. Apology when you are directly or indirectly responsible. That's essentially what sympathy versus empathy is all about. Now what do we mean by sympathy versus empathy? Sympathy basically means it's just an expression, and empathy means taking action to resolve the issue. All right, let me change this. So that is what sympathy versus empathy is. Sympathy is just expression of sadness. Empathy means taking action to resolve the issue. So when we talk about the fundamentals of effective communication, we need to have empathy instead of sympathy. Basically, when you express your sadness, it also has to include an action. If you keep on saying, I'm sorry to hear, I'm sorry to hear, what are you doing about it? If there is no action, it doesn't solve the problem. So that's why your communication should also have action oriented. Number 5 is clarity. Now this clarity is in terms of speech as in terms of thought process. Let me give you a quick example. What do we mean by clarity of speech? Say for example, I have this number, and the way I spell this number is F-I-V-E. Alright. Now a lot of people pronounce this as phi. They pronounce this as phi instead of 5. Same happens with the number 11. The pronunciation is E-le-ven, but a lot of people pronounce this as 11. Another example, 12. The pronunciation as the spelling goes is 12, but a lot of people pronounce this as 12. So when you have these mispronunciations, it leads to a misunderstanding, and obviously the person will not be able to understand. So that's what clarity of speech is all about. When you are speaking, you need to be very clear so that the other person can understand. Say for example, you are speaking on the phone and you need to spell the word. For example, when you are speaking on the phone, are you saying P as in Patna or B as in Bangalore? It's not clearly audible on the phone. P can sound like a B, M can sound like an N, F can sound like an S, so it's not clear. So that's why we have phonetics. I'll talk about the phonetics later. The point that I'm trying to make is clarity of speech is very, very important in order to be effective communicator. And the last one in terms of your essential component is listening skills. Listening skill basically means your ability to hear and to respond. Hearing is one part of it. Listening is when you absorb it, when you analyze, and then you respond. So we'll have a separate module on listening skills. Listening is important in order to be an effective communicator, because if you're not listening, that means you cannot respond effectively. Listening and hearing, the difference is you are only hearing the words. Listening, you are understanding the meaning of it. For example, somebody asks you that, do you want to have a cup of coffee? And you say, no, I'm in a hurry right now, I have to rush to the airport. It basically means, no, I don't want. If the person is a bad listener, who will again ask, oh, you didn't say that you want it or you don't want it. And your response is, when I say that I have to rush to the airport, of course I cannot have coffee right now. But the person is not listening. So hearing and listening are two different aspects. Hearing is a physical process where you are able to hear something. Listening is a mental process when you are absorbing the information, you analyzing, and then you are responding. Okay? So once again, the 6 essential components of effective communication: assertiveness, authenticity, open-mindedness, empathy, clarity, and listening skills. When we meet again, we're going to talk about the types of communication. We have verbal and non-verbal. What comes under verbal, what comes under non-verbal? People usually confuse what is verbal and what is non-verbal. We'll talk about verbal and non-verbal communication, and we'll introduce the 4 pillars of communication tomorrow. So today's learning is only from the orientation and your preparation point of view, understanding and awareness. Tomorrow onwards, the learning is going to get intensive. Whatever questions you have, please feel free to post on the YouTube channel, whichever video that you are watching. We will take a look at it and provide you with the answer. Alright, so hope you have a great evening ahead. I'm going to see you tomorrow. This 4 o'clock slot is for final year students. So I really hope that you will watch it and make best use of it. Thank you so much.